Chapter 1. The Choosing. I still remember the scent of burning pine that night, the night they came for me. The ancient ceremonial fires cast dancing shadows across the village gathering place where everyone who mattered stood watching. Everyone except me. I'd been hidden in my family's dwelling at the edge of the settlement, wrapped in linen that smelled of lavender and fear. "Stay here, Elise," my mother whispered, her fingers trembling as she tucked pale blonde hair behind my ear. "Whatever you hear, don't come out." She pressed something cold into my palm. My grandmother's silver pendant, a crescent moon embracing a tiny star. "Remember what she told you. Even in darkness, you carry light." Grandmother had been the only one who never looked at me with pity and unease. She alone spoke of my Omega nature as a gift rather than a burden. But she was gone now. The distant drums grew louder, mimicking my frantic heartbeat. The choosing ceremony had begun. Every 7 years, the Alpha King of the Northern Territories sent envoys to select potential brides from Omega females of the 5 allied packs. An honor, they called it, a duty, a privilege, a sentence. I pressed against the cellar wall, drawing my knees to my chest. Perhaps they would overlook me. Perhaps they'd choose Marielle from RiverClan, with her confident smile, or Sophia from Eastern Ridge, whose Omega scent calmed even the most agitated Alpha. Anyone but me, the awkward, too tall Omega, with hands that shook when people stared too long. The drums stopped suddenly. Then came the howls, signifying the selection was made. My muscles relaxed. It was done. Someone else had been chosen. Then I heard my mother's wail, a sound of raw anguish that cut through the night like a blade. Heavy footsteps approached. The cellar door flew open, torchlight flooding my hiding place. 3 royal guards stood above me, massive frames blocking escape. "Elise of the Shadow Valley Pack," the center guard announced emotionlessly. "You have been chosen as potential bride to King Edmund of the Northern Territories. You will come with us now." My mouth opened, but no sound emerged. This couldn't be happening. "Please," I finally whispered. "There must be confusion. I'm not—" "There is no confusion. You have been scented and selected." The king's emissary was most specific. Scented? I hadn't even attended the ceremony. My mother appeared behind the guards, face streaked with tears. "She's too young. She's not prepared. Please choose another." The guard's expression softened slightly. "It was not our choice to make, madam. The selection is final." I was given 10 minutes to gather my belongings, 10 minutes to say goodbye to everything familiar, before being escorted to a carriage bound for the king, known throughout territories as ruthless in battle and merciless to enemies. King Edmund, the Lycan king of the north, the Alpha whose howl alone made rival packs surrender. And I was to be presented to him as a potential bride. Chapter 2. The Journey North. The journey took 7 days. 7 days of watching forests grow darker and mountains grow taller through the carriage window. 7 days of barely eating, barely sleeping as terror and confusion battled within me. I clutched my grandmother's pendant throughout, running my thumb over its worn surface like a prayer. On the 6th night, as we camped in a clearing, the female attendant assigned to me, a beta named Clara with kind eyes, finally addressed what we hadn't spoken about. "You know," she said quietly, "being chosen isn't the death sentence you seem to think it is." I looked up, startled by her directness. "What would you call being taken from home to be presented to a stranger who may or may not bind you to him for life?" Clara's lips quirked. "An opportunity, perhaps, for power, for a life beyond village boundaries, for change." I shook my head. "I never wanted power or change. And yet here you are." Clara leaned forward. "Let me tell you something about our king. Yes, he is fierce. Yes, he can be ruthless when necessary. But he is also fair. He protects what is his with dedication bordering on obsession." She hesitated. "And he is lonely. Lonely, I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. The most powerful alpha in 5 territories? Power doesn't warm your bed at night or ease the burden of difficult decisions. Clara's eyes reflected dancing flames. For 3 choosing ceremonies, he has selected potential brides. 3 times he has sent them all home. Why? She shrugged. He says none of them felt right. But the council grows impatient. The kingdom needs an heir. For that, the king needs a queen. Her gaze settled on me with uncomfortable intensity. Something about your scent made his emissary certain you might be different. Sleep eluded me that night, my mind spinning with Clara's words. By the time we reached the king's fortress the following afternoon, I was exhausted, disoriented, and completely unprepared for the grandeur rising before me. The northern palace was carved directly into the tallest mountain. Massive windows of colored glass caught sunlight, sending prisms of blue, green, and purple dancing across the courtyard. I was whisked inside to chambers larger than my entire family home, decorated in cream and soft blue. Attendants filled a copper tub with steaming, scented water. They washed me, dried me, dressed me in a midnight blue gown that flowed like water. "The king will see you this evening," Clara informed me. "Just the 2 of you. It's unconventional, but he was insistent." Terror seized me. "But I'm not prepared." "Just be honest," Clara said, her tone softening. "That's all he asks." She turned me toward a mirror. For a moment, I didn't recognize the woman staring back. The gown made my pale skin luminescent. Whatever the attendants had done brought warmth to my features I'd never noticed. I looked striking in a way that was unfamiliar. "Remember," Clara said, "you were chosen. Something about you called to him." Chapter 3. The King. As twilight fell, I was escorted through winding corridors revealing new wonders, tapestries depicting ancient battles, fountains flowing from rock itself, gardens of glowing moss. Finally, we reached heavy wooden doors carved with moon phases. A guard knocked. A deep voice commanded, "Enter." Clara squeezed my hand, then nudged me forward. The king's private study was almost austere. Practical furniture of dark wood, walls lined with books, a massive fireplace casting the only light. Standing with his back to me, silhouetted against flames, was King Edmund himself. Even from behind, he was intimidating. Tall, broad-shouldered, his posture that of a man accustomed to command. His dark hair fell past his shoulders in a way that seemed more warrior than royal. "Your Majesty," the guard announced, "Lady Elise of Shadow Valley Pack." The doors closed. I was alone with him. Remembering protocol, I lowered into a deep curtsy, keeping my eyes downcast. "Rise," he said, his voice deeper than I'd imagined, resonating in my chest like distant thunder. I stood but kept my gaze on the carpet. "Look at me." It was a command that made every instinct in my Omega nature respond. My head lifted, and our eyes met for the first time. The Lycan king wasn't what stories had led me to expect. Yes, he was fearsome. Sharp features, strong jaw darkened with beard shadow, eyes that shifted between gray and silver in firelight. But he wasn't the monster of nightmares. He was younger than I'd thought, perhaps 30, and there was something in his expression beyond hardness. Weariness. A question. For several heartbeats he said nothing, simply studied me with intensity that made me want to shrink, to hide, to run. Then he inhaled deeply. "Your scent. It's different here than in the sample. Stronger, more complex." I didn't know how to respond, so I remained silent, fighting trembling that threatened to overtake me. He circled me slowly, like a predator assessing prey. Though he kept his distance, I could feel his gaze assessing, calculating, seeing too much. "Are you afraid of me, Elise of Shadow Valley?" Truth spilled before I could consider diplomacy. "Yes." To my surprise, his lips curved slightly. "Good. Fear keeps you alert." He gestured to a chair near the fire. "Sit, please." I perched on the edge, back straight, hands folded to hide their trembling. He poured 2 glasses of wine, handed one to me, then took the opposite chair. "Do you know why you're here?" he asked. "I've been chosen as a potential bride," I said softly, the words still surreal. "And what do you think of that honor?" Again, truth compelled me. "I think it's terrifying." That almost smile appeared again. Not the answer most would give. "What answer would you prefer?" "I prefer honesty to flattery." He leaned forward slightly. "Tell me, Elise, what terrifies you most? That you might be chosen as my queen, or that you might not be?" The question caught me off guard. I'd never considered the latter as something to fear. "I don't know you," I said finally. "How can I want or fear a life with someone I've just met?" He nodded slowly, as if I'd passed some test. "A fair point. Then let us remedy that." He raised his glass. "Ask me anything you wish. Tonight we begin to know each other." And so began the strangest conversation of my life. Chapter 4. Recognition. We talked for hours. He asked about my childhood, and I felt myself withdraw. Walls around those memories rising instinctively. "You're hiding," he observed, his voice dropping to a lower register that sent shivers down my spine. "Don't hide from me. Not if we are to have any chance at all." His words hung between us, command and plea entwined. "My childhood wasn't what most would expect," I began hesitantly. "In Shadow Valley, Omegas are rare. Treasured in theory, but in practice." I paused. "In practice, we're sheltered to the point of suffocation." "Protected," he offered. "Hidden," I countered, surprising myself with boldness. "There's a difference." Something flickered in his expression. Approval, perhaps. From the time my nature presented at 13, I became something to be guarded rather than guided. While others learned to hunt, to track, to defend themselves, I was kept within boundaries. While they strengthened pack bonds through rituals, I was sequestered for my safety. Bitterness rose in my voice. Their protection became its own kind of cage. "And what did you want instead?" he asked quietly. No one had ever asked what I wanted. "To belong," I whispered, the truth aching in my chest. "To contribute. To be seen as more than just a fragile thing to be preserved until—" I stopped, heat rising to my face. "Until you were claimed by an alpha," he finished without judgment. I nodded, unable to meet his eyes. "And now you've been claimed by the most dominant alpha in 5 territories." His voice carried that rumbling undertone that seemed to resonate in my bones. "Is that why you tremble when I look at you? Because you fear trading one cage for another?" My head snapped up, surprised by his perception. "Wouldn't you? In my position?" The king stood suddenly, moving to the window overlooking moonlit mountains. Tension evident in his stance. "I was 15 when I became king," he said after a long moment. "My father and older brother killed in the same border skirmish. Too young, too unprepared, too angry." He glanced over his shoulder. "I know something of cages others cannot see. Elise of Shadow Valley." Something shifted in the air. Recognition, perhaps. 2 souls shaped by circumstances beyond their control. "Why did you choose me?" I asked. "There were others far more suitable." He turned fully. "I didn't. I sent my most trusted advisor, Gabriel, to conduct the selection. He has a gift for sensing compatible energies. The choice was his. But you're the king. Surely the final decision is yours. And yet I've rejected every potential bride presented to me for 7 years." The corner of his mouth lifted. "Much to the council's frustration." "Why?" He moved closer, stopping a few paces away. "Because I've seen what happens when wolves mate without the true bond. My parents were such a pair, a political alliance, nothing more. My father took his pleasures elsewhere. My mother retreated into bitter isolation. The kingdom suffered for it." His eyes locked with mine. intensity radiating like heat. I will not repeat their mistake. And you think I might bond with you? The concept seemed impossible. I think Gabriel has never been wrong, and I think your scent calls to something in me I've spent years denying. My heart pounded so loudly I was certain he could hear it. I should retire, I said, my voice barely audible. It's late. For a moment I thought he might object. Instead, he nodded once, but as I moved to follow Clara, he spoke again, voice carrying that rumbling timbre that reached places inside me I hadn't known existed. Rest well, Elise of Shadow Valley. Tomorrow we begin to know each other in daylight. Chapter 5. Into the Territory. Morning came with Clara and news that made my stomach clench. The king wishes to show you the territory today. The palace stables housed no gentle mares. The horse presented to me was a dappled gray stallion with intelligent eyes and restless energy. His name is Whisper, came the king's voice from behind me. Already mounted on a massive black horse, he looked at me steadily. He's spirited, but not cruel. He won't let you fall. Gathering courage, I mounted. The king nodded approval, then urged his horse forward. Away from the palace, the king became more himself. He spoke of the territory with pride beyond mere possession, pointing out landmarks and sharing legends. You love this place, I observed as we paused atop a ridge overlooking a vast valley. It's mine to protect, he answered simply, though his expression suggested the relationship went deeper. Is that how you see everything, in terms of possession and protection? His eyes met mine. Not everything, but much. He dismounted, then approached my horse. May I? His hands encircled my waist, lifting me easily from the saddle. He set me down, but didn't step back, hands lingering. And how do you see the world, Elise of Shadow Valley? His voice was low. I fought the urge to look away. In terms of connections, the threads that bind one life to another. And what threads bind you? Duty to my family, loyalty to my pack. I hesitated. Fear of failing either? And to me? His thumbs traced small circles at my waist, sending warmth spiraling through me despite layers between us. What binds you here? I don't know yet, I whispered. Satisfaction flickered in his eyes. An honest answer. He released me, stepping back. Come, there's something I want to show you. We followed a narrow path through ancient pines, until suddenly we emerged into a clearing dominated by a pool of startlingly blue water. Steam rose from its surface. A hot spring, the king explained, one of many throughout these mountains. It's beautiful, I said, drawn to the water's edge. Legend says the first wolves found their way here during the great winter, when all other lands were buried in snow. These waters saved them. In gratitude, they swore to protect the mountains forever. He crouched beside me. Every king since has renewed that oath. I watched ripples spread from his hand, mesmerized. You believe the old stories? I believe in honoring the past while forging a new future. He looked up at me. That's what I hope for this kingdom. Balance of tradition and progress. Is that why you seek a queen? For balance? His expression hardened slightly. I seek a queen because the kingdom needs an heir. The council reminds me constantly. And what do you need? For a long moment he studied my face. I need someone who doesn't fear the wolf beneath the crown. Someone who sees me, not just the king. The vulnerability in his admission caught me off guard. Before I could respond, a distant howl broke the silence. A signal from palace guards. We're needed back, he said, tension returning. Chapter 6. Danger in the Court. As we approached the gates, I sensed something had changed. Guards moved with heightened alertness. In the courtyard waited a tall, lean man with burnished copper hair and eyes that seemed to look through you. Gabriel, the king acknowledged. What's happened? Delegates from the Southern Coalition have arrived unexpectedly, Gabriel replied, his gaze flicking to me. Lord Raven leads them. Something dark passed across the king's face. What does he want? To discuss territorial boundaries. Gabriel's tone suggested he didn't believe this. And to present his daughter as a potential queen consort. The king's expression hardened into something cold and forbidding. Take Lady Elise to her chambers, he instructed Clara. Ensure she has everything she needs. I was being dismissed, shut away while important matters were discussed. The familiar feeling of being excluded rose like a bitter tide. Before I could stop myself, I spoke. Is that necessary? Both men looked at me with surprise. What I mean, I continued, gathering courage, is that if I am to be considered as your queen, shouldn't I begin to understand the political landscape? Tense silence followed. Instead of a rebuke, the king's expression shifted. The hardness eased, curiosity flickered. A valid point, he conceded, surprising everyone. His gaze moved to Gabriel. Arrange for Lady Elise to join us after formal greetings. Seated to my left, 2 places removed. Gabriel nodded, a ghost of a smile playing at his mouth. Chapter 7. The Great Hall. Clara led me quickly to my chambers for preparation. My riding clothes were exchanged for a formal gown of deep emerald. Lord Raven is the most powerful. Alpha in the Southern Coalition, Clara explained. He has sought alliance with our king for years, primarily through his daughter, Serena. Is she an Omega? No, a Beta, but from a bloodline almost as ancient as the royal one. Clara's hands stilled. She is formidable. Beautiful. I found myself asking, then immediately regretted the insecurity. Beautiful? Clara met my eyes in the mirror. In the way a sword is beautiful. Striking, sharp, and dangerous to touch. My heart sank. What chance did I have against someone like that? Remember, Clara said firmly, you were chosen. The king has dismissed Serena 3 times already. Gabriel arrived to escort me to the Great Hall. You've caused quite a stir, he remarked as we walked. It's not often someone surprises our king. Was I wrong to speak up? Wrong? No. A smile ghosted across his features. Unexpected, certainly. Omegas at previous ceremonies were more conventional. You mean they didn't challenge the king's decisions? Gabriel's smile widened. As I said, unexpected. At the massive doors, he paused. A word of advice. Lord Raven is perceptive and ruthless. He will seek weaknesses to exploit. Reveal nothing. The doors swung open. Voices, laughter, and music washed over us. The great hall was a marvel, a vast cavern within the mountain, ceilings soaring impossibly high where crystal formations caught candlelight. Long tables stretched in parallel lines filled with nobles in finest attire. At the head sat King Edmund on a throne of polished stone, expression carefully neutral. To his right sat a man who could only be Lord Raven, tall and lean like a hunting bird, with black hair and eyes that glittered like obsidian. Beside him was a woman whose beauty struck me like a physical blow. Midnight hair fell in waves over pale shoulders, left bare by a crimson gown clinging to every perfect curve. This had to be Serena. Gabriel led me through the crowd, which parted like water. Whispers followed. I kept my chin high, projecting confidence I didn't feel. When we reached the high table, Gabriel announced me formally. The king's eyes found mine. Something passed between us. Silent acknowledgement of the challenge ahead. As I took my seat, Lord Raven's scrutiny crawled over me. Assessing, calculating, dismissive. So this is the new selection, he said, voice smooth as silk, but cold as winter. From Shadow Valley, I understand. A rather provincial pack. Before I could respond, King Edmund spoke. Shadow Valley has been loyal to the Northern Throne for 10 generations. Loyalty matters more to me than prestige, Lord Raven. A subtle rebuke delivered with perfect precision. Of course, Lord Raven conceded with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Though surely bloodlines must factor into such an important decision. The strength of the next generation depends on it. Serena leaned forward. My father means well, Your Majesty. We all wish only for the continued strength of the northern territories. Her gaze slid to me, sharp as a blade beneath her perfect smile. And some bloodlines are simply stronger than others. I felt the sting. My lineage was inferior. My Omega nature a weakness. Old insecurities threatened to rise, the urge to shrink away. Then I felt it, a subtle shift in energy beside me. Glancing at the king, I saw his jaw tighten, a flash of something dangerous in his eyes. He was angry at the slight against me. The knowledge gave me courage. Strength manifests in many ways, Lady Serena, I said, my voice quiet but clear. The wolf who survives is not always the one with the sharpest claws, but often the one with the keenest awareness of the pack's needs. Stunned silence followed. Then the king raised his goblet slightly in my direction, a gesture so subtle only those closest would notice. Well said, Lady Elise. Chapter 8. The Dance. When the formal dinner concluded and music began, I expected to be forgotten. Instead, King Edmund appeared beside my chair, extending his hand. Lady Elise, he said, his voice carrying that rumbling undertone reserved for me alone, would you honor me with this dance? Collective hush fell. The king rarely danced, I would later learn. Never with potential brides at their first formal appearance. By this simple act, he was making a statement everyone would interpret and discuss for days. I placed my hand in his, acutely aware of warmth, of strength in his fingers as they closed around mine. He led me to the center of the floor where other dancers respectfully created space. Everyone is staring, I whispered as he placed his hand at my waist, drawing me closer than protocol dictated. Let them, he replied, eyes never leaving mine. You handled Raven and his daughter admirably. I spoke without thinking. Your honesty is refreshing in a place where most words carry double meanings. His hand tightened at my waist as he guided me through a turn. Though you should know you've made an enemy in Serena. She's not accustomed to being challenged. She sees me as competition. For you. For the throne. Is that so surprising? I looked up at him, at the face that had begun to fascinate rather than frighten. Yes. I still don't understand why I'm here. His expression softened, almost imperceptibly. You will, he murmured, voice so low I felt, rather than heard the words. Soon. The dance ended too quickly. Chapter 9. Midnight Threat. That night after I'd retired to my chambers, quick footsteps approached. Serena appeared, her crimson gown catching light like spilled blood. A moment, Lady Elise, she said, voice honey-sweet but eyes hard as stone. I wanted to speak privately. Clara tensed beside me, but I shook my head subtly. Of course, Lady Serena. Once we'd moved into an alcove, she spoke directly. You don't belong here. Whatever trick or chance brought you to the king's attention won't last. Omegas like you aren't made for court life or ruling. You're made for breeding and little else. The cruelty struck like physical blows, but I kept my expression neutral. Thank you for your concern, I said quietly. But I believe the king will make his own determinations. Her features hardened. He will choose me in the end. He always has. This, she gestured dismissively, is merely a diversion. When he needs a true partner, a queen who will strengthen his rule rather than weaken it with Omega emotionality and fragility, he will turn to me. Perhaps, I acknowledged, refusing to show how her words echoed my own insecurities. The choice is his. A choice that could be simplified. Her voice dropped to a silken whisper. Leave now. Return to your village. Spare yourself the humiliation of public rejection. I would even ensure you're compensated generously. She was trying to bribe me to withdraw. I appreciate your offer, I said, infusing my voice with calmness I didn't feel. But I will remain until the king himself dismisses me. Good night, Lady Serena. I turned to leave, but her hand shot out, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. You've made an enemy today, she hissed, all pretense gone. Remember that when everything falls apart. I could have called for guards. Instead, I looked pointedly at her hand, then back to her face. I believe you're overstepping, Lady Serena. The king wouldn't approve of his guests threatening his chosen potential. Her eyes widened at my boldness, and she released me as if burned. This isn't over, she warned. No, I agreed, turning away. I suspect it's only beginning. Chapter 10. Poison morning came too soon. Clara arrived with breakfast and unsettling news. The council wishes to meet you. I was led to a circular chamber where 7 counselors sat in a semicircle, with an elderly woman at their center, Elder Matilda, head of the King's Council. Lady Elise of Shadow Valley, she began. We've asked you here to better understand the woman our king has brought into our midst. I'm honored by your attention, Elder. Honor has little to do with it, said the man to her right, Counselor Henrik, lean and severe. This is a matter of succession and stability. You must understand our concern, child, Matilda said. King Edmund has rejected 17 potential queens over 7 years. The kingdom grows restless. I understand. Do you? Asked another counselor skeptically. You come from a small border pack, with no connections, no formal education, no training. What do you bring that others have not? The question struck at my deepest doubts. What did I have that Serena did not? Then I remembered the silver wolf in my pocket. For courage shown. Honesty, I answered, lifting my chin. I bring honesty, and a perspective uncolored by court intrigues. I bring compassion born from understanding what it means to be overlooked. I bring the ability to see beyond power to the needs that power should serve. I took a breath. I don't yet know if I'm suited to be queen, but I do know that a throne exists to protect those who cannot protect themselves. And I understand that need intimately. Considering silence followed. Pretty words, remarked Henrik, but a queen needs more than ideals. She needs strength. With respect, I said, strength takes many forms. Not all are visible at first glance. A ghost of a smile touched Matilda's lips. Indeed. She leaned forward. Tell me, child, what do you know of our king? I know he values loyalty and honesty. I know he carries the weight of his position alone by choice. I know, I paused. I think he is someone who has learned to hide his true nature because his position demands it. Someone who seeks connection but fears its cost. The counselors exchanged glances. One last question, Matilda said. Why are you here? Not why were you chosen, but why have you stayed? Why had I stayed? Because for the first time in my life, I answered truthfully, I'm not being hidden away. I'm being seen. Truly seen for what I am, rather than what others fear I might become. Matilda studied me, then nodded decisively. Thank you for your candor. You may go. I left uncertain whether I'd passed or failed. Clara was waiting, but Gabriel appeared before we'd turned the corner. Lady Elise, he said urgently. The king requests your presence immediately. She's just come from council questioning. It cannot wait. Gabriel was already turning. Please, my lady, it's important. Something in his tone silenced objections. He led me to heavy wooden doors guarded by sentinels. He's inside, Gabriel said quietly. Something happened during the night. He wouldn't share details, but he hesitated. I've not seen him like this in many years. Like what? Struggling for control. The wolf is close to the surface today. His amber eyes held mine. Be careful, but don't show fear. The doors opened. I stepped into a vast training arena carved from living rock. King Edmund stood at its center, stripped to the waist, body gleaming with sweat as he moved through combat forms, with a blade that caught light from everywhere. His movements were precise, controlled, yet carried underlying violence that made my breath catch. I remained silent by the door, mesmerized by the deadly grace. He knew I was there. Yet he continued his lethal dance. Finally, he stopped, back to me, shoulders rising and falling. "There was an attempt," he said, voice so low I had to strain to hear. "During the night. On your life." The words hit like a physical blow. "What?" He turned, and the expression on his face made me step back involuntarily. Rage, cold, controlled but unmistakable, hardened his features. His eyes had shifted fully to silver. "Poison," he said, each syllable clipped. "In the water basin in your chambers. If you had used it for morning ablutions instead of the bath Clara prepared..." He didn't finish. Didn't need to. "Who?" "We don't know yet." He crossed the space with predatory grace, stopping close, enough that I could feel heat radiating from his skin. "But I will find out. And when I do, they will understand exactly what it means to threaten what is mine." What is mine? The possessive claim should have alarmed me. Instead, it sent a shiver down my spine. "I'm not yours," I said quietly. "Not yet." For a moment I thought I'd pushed too far. His eyes flashed dangerously. Then, to my surprise, he laughed, short, harsh, with little humor. "No," he acknowledged, reaching out to brush hair from my face with unexpected gentleness. "Not yet. But you're here, in my territory, under my protection. And no one touches what I protect." His fingers lingered at my temple. "You're not safe here. Not anymore. The council has decreed you must remain until the full moon. 3 days from now, when I must make my final choice. Until then, you don't leave my sight or Gabriel's. You think it was Serena? Or Lord Raven?" His expression darkened. "I think someone fears what your presence means. And fear makes wolves dangerous." His hand dropped. "Don't hide from me in the coming days, little wolf. Your life may depend on it." Chapter 11. 3 days. Those 3 days became the strangest of my life. Days of shadow and revelation, of danger and unexpected intimacy. True to his word, the king kept me within his sight, incorporating me into the rhythm of his duties. I sat beside him during morning audiences, witnessing how he balanced justice with mercy. I attended council meetings where my presence was initially met with skepticism, but gradually accepted. I even joined him in the war room. "Here," he said on the second day, finger tracing a map. "This is where Shadow Valley lies." His hand expanded outward. "And this is what I protect. 500 miles of mountains, forests, valleys. 37 packs. 9 human settlements. Countless wild wolves." "It's overwhelming," I admitted. "The responsibility?" "Yes. No false modesty. Just simple acknowledgement of the weight he carried." "Is that how you see a mate? As a safeguard?" He looked at me, eyes shifting to storm cloud gray. "No. A true mate is a balance. Someone who strengthens where you are weak. Who challenges when you need challenging. Who supports when you need support." His hand covered mine. "Someone who sees both the king and the wolf beneath, and accepts both without flinching." His words stirred something in me, a longing I'd never acknowledged. Before I could respond, Gabriel entered with news of border movement, and the moment passed. But something had shifted. A barrier lowered. A truth acknowledged. That night, as we dined in his study, the conversation flowed easily. "Tell me of your dreams," he said as we sat before the fire. Before all this, what did Elise of Shadow Valley want? No one had ever asked. "Connection," I said finally. "Not just to a mate or family, but to something larger. A purpose that used what I am, rather than seeing it as a limitation." I glanced at him. "Omegas are taught our highest purpose is to bear strong children. I always felt there should be more. And what would that more look like? Mediation, perhaps. Omegas can sense emotional currents others miss. We could help resolve conflicts before they escalate. Or healing, not just of bodies, but of divisions between packs, between wolves and humans. I shook my head. Impossible dreams, probably. Why impossible? Because tradition says an Omega's place is protected within boundaries, not out in the world creating change. He leaned forward, face serious in firelight. Traditions evolve, Elise. Sometimes they need to. There was conviction in his voice that made me wonder what changes he envisioned, what role he might see for someone like me. Before I could ask, a knock interrupted. Gabriel entered, expression grave. We found something. In Lord Raven's quarters. The king stood immediately. Show me. Gabriel hesitated, glancing at me. It involves Lady Elise directly. She comes with us, the king said, extending his hand. If you wish to. I took his hand. I do. Chapter 12. The plot revealed. What Gabriel had found was a letter intercepted from a messenger, addressed to a southern outpost, written in code the king's officers had deciphered. It detailed plans not just for my elimination, but for disruption of the upcoming full moon ceremony. The seal is Serena's, Gabriel pointed out, but the handwriting doesn't match samples we have. A clever feint, the king growled, eyes flickering silver. Make it appear the daughter acts alone while the father maintains innocence. He looked to Gabriel. Where are they now? Still in their chambers. They believe the messenger escaped. The king's decision was swift. Detain them both quietly. I want no diplomatic incident before I have proof of Raven's direct involvement. His hand found the small of my back. Protective. Double the guard on Lady Elise's chambers. Have Clara move her things to the royal wing immediately. I looked up in surprise. The royal wing was reserved for family and most trusted advisors. Is that wise? I asked. Won't this escalation provoke them? Let them be provoked, he replied, voice carrying that dangerous edge. Let them understand exactly what happens to those who threaten what I... He stopped, correcting himself. What is under my protection? That careful distinction between possession and protection. That space he deliberately maintained. It moved me in a way I hadn't expected. This restraint from the most dominant alpha in 5 territories. That night I was installed in chambers connected to the king's own by a shared sitting room. The king has never brought anyone into the royal wing, Clara remarked. Not in all the years I've served here. It's just for safety. Clara's knowing smile told me she wasn't fooled. I slept fitfully, dreaming of silver wolves and poisoned chalices, of ceremonies and ancient vows. I woke before dawn to find the king seated in the shared sitting room, watching first light touch distant peaks. You're troubled, he said without turning. Today you must choose, I said, moving beside him. The council requires it. Yes. And if you choose me, what then? What would it mean to be your queen? Now he turned, rising with fluid grace. In dawn light his eyes were neither silver nor gray, but something in between. It would mean partnership, he said simply. It would mean no more hiding. Not your thoughts, not your dreams, not your strength. It would mean standing beside me as my equal in all things. He stepped closer. It would mean belonging, Elise. To me, to this place, to a purpose larger than either of us. My heart raced. And if I'm not ready, if I'm not strong enough? His hand cupped my cheek. You stood before the council without flinching. You faced Serena's threats with dignity. You've adapted to court politics in days where others struggle for years. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. You are stronger than you know, little wolf. Something unfurled in my chest at his words. Before I could respond, a knock announced Gabriel. It was time to prepare for the ceremony. Chapter 13. The choosing ceremony. The ceremony was held in the ancient grove where hot springs bubbled from the mountain's heart, the sacred place the king had shown me. A circular clearing surrounded by ancient pines, their branches creating a natural cathedral. Hundreds of candles floated on steaming water. The court gathered in a great circle. At its head stood Elder Matilda, silver hair adorned with pine needles woven with gold. I stood to one side with the other potential brides, 3 in total, including Serena. Despite evidence against her, the king insisted on following tradition. She would be rejected publicly, not through scandal. A political calculation that impressed me. A horn sounded. The king entered, dressed not in royal finery, but in traditional garb, leather and furs that emphasized the warrior beneath the crown. Firelight caught on the silver circlet at his brow. Elder Matilda raised her arms. Under the full moon, as has been our way since the first pack found sanctuary in these mountains, we come to witness a choice. A king's choice of his mate, his queen, his other half. Let the choosing begin. One by one he approached each potential bride. To Liliana, a kind beta from Eastern Ridge, he bowed respectfully. You honor me with your willingness, but the bond is not there. You are released with gratitude and respect. Liliana curtsied gracefully, accepting with dignity. Next came Serena. The king's expression hardened as he approached. Lady Serena, he said, tone cooler. You have been presented 3 times. 3 times I have found no resonance between us. His gaze flicked to Lord Raven standing rigidly at the circle's edge. You are released for the final time. Seek happiness elsewhere. Fury flashed across her perfect features before she masked it. As your majesty wishes. Then he turned to me, and the world seemed to still. He crossed the space with measured steps, eyes never leaving mine. When he reached me, he didn't immediately speak. Simply looked at me. Really looked, as if seeing beyond surface to something essential within. Elise of Shadow Valley, he said finally, voice changed, lower, resonant with something primal. Found and chosen against all expectation. He extended his hand, palm up. An invitation, not a command. I ask not for submission, but for partnership. Not for obedience, but for honesty. I ask you to stand not behind me, but beside me. His voice dropped further. Don't hide from me, little wolf, not tonight, not ever again. In that moment I understood what Gabriel had sensed, the resonance between us that had nothing to do with status, and everything to do with recognition of something kindred despite our differences. I placed my hand in his. I won't hide, not from you, not from myself, not from the future we might build. A smile broke across his face, transformative, revealing the man beneath the crown. He drew me forward until our foreheads touched, an ancient gesture older than any ritual. Then I choose you, he said simply, as mate, as queen, as equal. Elder Matilda stepped forward, binding our joined hands with a cord of silver and gold. What the mountain witnesses cannot be broken. What the pack acknowledges cannot be denied. Let all present recognize this bond and honor it through generations to come. A chorus of howls rose from the gathered court, the traditional response. As tradition dictated, the king led me to the sacred pool's edge. Together we knelt, still bound hand to hand, and dipped our free hands into warm, mineral-rich water. From the mountain's heart to our own, he murmured, ritual words carrying centuries' weight. Bound by water, bound by choice, bound by something greater than either. Epilogue. No more hiding. Later, much later, when the ceremony had concluded and we stood together on the balcony of our shared chambers, he turned to me, expression solemn in moonlight. There will be challenges, he said, thumb tracing patterns on my palm. Raven's plotting was only the beginning. Some will resist the changes your presence will bring. I know, I said, surprising myself with lack of fear. But we'll face them together. Together, he agreed, drawing me closer until I could feel his heart beat against my own. No more hiding, little wolf. For either of us. As his lips found mine in our first true kiss, gentle yet insistent, a promise and a claim, I thought of how far I'd come from that frightened Omega hiding in a cellar, waiting to be overlooked.